So by just a little bit on my background so you understand where my perspective is coming from. When I talk about fibers, it's a lot different than I think what you've heard today about fibers. I come from the aerospace industry where we use fibers to support structural type fibers that carry high loads. The types of fibers that hemp is currently being used for are short fibers that are using to just reinforce other materials. We're talking about load-bearing fibers when we talk about fibers. And I personally think, as do my colleagues, this is the real value of the hemp plant because it can compete with fiberglass. It can compete with glass fibers. And so that gives us a sustainable material that we can get high performance out of. I do have two other colleagues that I've been working with, Dan Walchuk at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. He's also the director of a CAT center, and if you're not familiar with what CAT centers are, there's 7 of them in New York State. They're funded by the state. They're centers for advancement of technology. We're actually collaborating with his CAT center for automation and another CAT center for lighting, because one of the other initiatives that I'll talk a little bit about today is actually we'll be growing hemp indoors. And so the lighting center uses LEDs, and they'll tune the LEDs to optimize the growth of the plant. So that's one other thing. And the three of us have kind of unique backgrounds. Jared's background, we're all mechanical engineers, but Jared's background is closer to the agronomists, the people who deal with the soil. He's dealing with what are the soil factors, what are the growing factors that give us the properties of the plants. Dan, he's processing. Are the processes we are using, which we are adapting processes that we've used for other fibers like canaf or cotton or things like that to deal with hemp, are they optimal? And can we improve on those? And that's one of his things. And then my background is mostly in the end product design and characterization. I'm not going to dwell too much on this, but this is basically a quick history of hemp. And I do want to just point out a couple things. And one of the ironies is when hemp was actually outlawed in the United States in '37, in December of that month, Popular Mechanics came out with a whole issue on the billion-dollar product that hemp was. And then how when we went to war and we needed things like rope and canvas and things like that, hemp was re-legalized. And then, of course, then we lost it again. We're 80 years behind. And that's what we're struggling with. And that's what we're seeing when we're working with the mills and things like that that are processing hemp. We are 80 years behind. And that's why we've come together and we're trying to bring academics together to get the research started ahead of the Farm Bill. Because unfortunately, I heard just yesterday from some of the lobbyists that we work with that it's very possible the Farm Bill will not be passed this year, yet again. But we have to get it going. So when it is, and it does become a commodity product, we're getting out ahead, and so we can start. Unfortunately, I don't think the nice Canadians will like to hear this. So we can start competing with them.
Collaborate.
There you go. There is a lot of collaboration right now with some of the people in Canada. I'm not going to spend too much time also because we just had a really great speaker that talked about it. But there are a lot of opportunities. And I'm going to use the word opportunities. Okay? There's no guarantee on anything, but there are a lot of opportunities, especially with the seeds. And I think that's where a lot of people are headed right now with hemp. But one of the things we're finding is growing hemp for seed is a lot different than growing it for the types of fibers that we want. And so it's not, you can't grow it for the fibers we want and then get the seeds that are actually going to give you some of these benefits. One of the more interesting areas, and I know well, this is a school of pharmacy, but there are other people in schools of pharmacy. We're working with the Albany School of Pharmacy, actually looking at the Chinese medicinals that have been derived from hemp root as another potential use for this plant. I'm not going to really talk much about that today either. This is what I'm interested in. It's the fiber. And we're going to take a real close look not too technical, but just close, a real close look at the fiber. And this is the hurd they're talking about. And if you take a look, there are some hemp stalks out there. It's that woody part, the hurd. That has a lot of uses. Out here's the epidermis, but right inside there are the bast fibers. And those are the fibers we want. And what you have to understand is when you look at those fibers, you look at all the things coming off, those aren't really the fibers that are giving you the strength. Okay? It's these cellulitic fibers that are in there that are really small. And they're covered by lignins and pectins and all these other things that a lot of people are taking those away. And the reason you're taking those away is because the cellulose is where the strength is and where the great properties are. And these other things just kind of weaken it down. So you can think about, you have a really, stiff string and the spring around a really soft one, right? And it's kind of, you average things out. It's called phase averaging. And the more of that other stuff you have, the weaker it appears, okay? Now, why fibers are so important is because what we found through history is that when you have bulk materials, they get really weak. You don't get anywhere near their theoretical strengths or anything like that because of flaws. And as you get smaller and smaller and smaller, things get stronger and stronger and stronger. So we want these really strong little fibers, and that's what has us really excited. So anyway, also, eventually what we want to do, and what we're looking into right now, is the hurd there's a lot of things we can do with the hurd. But one of the other things we can do is we can make biopolymers. So instead of using petroleum-based polymers to put into hemp, to surround the hemp fibers, we can use biopolymers that are compatible with the hemp, and now you have a completely sustainable material. And we can save the petroleum for what it's really great for, which is energy. It's one of the only energies. You talk about wind, solar, and all nuclear and all that other stuff. It's the only energy we can turn on and off at will. Okay? All the other ones you can't do that to. So let's save it for what it's good for and not put it into polymers. And that's coming from someone who, for 10 years, I worked in an industry where we made petroleum-based polymers and petroleum-based fibers. And they do wonderful things, and you're never going to get rid of them for certain applications. But these fibers can replace an awful lot of what we're currently using carbon and glass fibers for. All right. There are a lot of natural fibers out there. Hemp isn't the only one. They all have different characteristics. But hemp bast fibers, and I'll explain this. This looks confusing, but it really isn't. Look at it this way. This corner is really great in terms of materials. So what we've done is we've taken, that's how stiff something is, how hard it is to pull it apart, okay, and divided it by its density or its weight, okay? And over here, how strong it is, and we divided it by its weight. So if you had something and I had to hold so much weight and you had the same amount of material, okay, the one higher up here would be a lot lighter. So if you think about an airplane or something, that means I can put more capacity in the airplane. That's why we like fibers and composites. Well, let's take a look. These are all natural fibers. And then these are, well, here you have your aramids, that's Kevlar. You have carbon fiber. And here you have glass fiber. Here you have hemp. It's competing. This stuff competes. Right here you have steel and aluminum. All right? This stuff competes. This is what's got us really excited about this, is that these are real materials. Now, unfortunately, this is what has to happen. This is where you start, and then you have to go through all this processing to get it down to something that I can put into a real material. And just to go along the way, one of the first steps, the agronomists are looking here. And I've talked to a lot of people about, what do we tell the farmers to put into the field? And that's really important, that we make sure that we get the right stuff in the field, how to plant it, how much, what you put in the soil is going to impact the quality of the fiber all the way over here. Okay? Retting. Okay, do we need to ret? And what retting is, in case you don't know. So you have this hurd, and you have the epidermis, and then you have the fibers in between, and you have all this lignin and pectins. Well, retting is letting letting the pectins just rot away so you can easily pull the fiber away from the herd, easily pull the fibers apart. Unfortunately, that too impacts the fibers. Okay, so there are some other ways of doing this. Then there's decorticating. And that's what has to happen then is, even though you let it red in the field, you still have herd on it. And just like you want herd that's clean, you want fibers that are clean of herd. All right, and so what they do is they literally bang it up. They hit it and they break up the herd, and then you start going through combing processes and things like that. Okay, it's all these processes. Are they the right process to get high quality fiber? Not the fibers you just put it as fillers and things, but really high quality fibers. This summer we were out at, you talked about Sunstrand. We were out at Sunstrand, we visited them. This terrified me. You want to talk about expense. It's degumming. That is a chemical process to remove even more of the lignins off the fibers. And when I mean, it's a huge chemical process that has to go on. And then you get something like this that now you can start processing as fibers and spinning as fibers. These are two different types of hemp stalks. I just want to give you an idea of scale. Well, here you have some scales here. These, although they look like fibers, and people would usually refer to these as fibers, they're actually, we would refer to these as toes. And even in here, this is the piece that I'm going to actually take a look at. We're going to take a look. We're going to go down a little bit in size scale, some SEM images, and take a look at what's really going on in here. But that's not even a fiber. They're smaller than that. Okay? This has a lot of stuff on it we don't want. The difference between this and that, these are both hemp stalks grown differently. This was grown for, this is a kind of combined herd fiber plant. That's grown just for fiber. So there's very little herd on there. And it's a lot easier to get off. And then this is, I don't know, it could be scary. This is two different processed fibers. This is probably some of the best processed fiber in the United States. This is the processed fiber in China. Okay, I got this out of a mill up in upstate New York because the mill was telling us they can't even put this in their carding machine because they need it to start kind of combining on each other. It's too short. Where these Chinese fibers are nice and long. Now what the real difference is this is more manually intensive. They just have a lot of people that they can actually do a lot of manual processes that don't beat up the fiber as much. And that's one of the things that we want to try to start looking at is how can we automate this? Because we just can't do the labor-intensive type steps. I'm not going to spend a real lot of time on this either. The main takeaway of this is those hemp stalks, obviously they don't look pyramid shaped, but they do change shape as they go up. Their anatomy also changes shape. And the fiber up near the flower isn't as valuable as the mid-fiber, and the mid-fiber is a lot more valuable than the fiber down by the root. So it's all fiber along the plant isn't the same as well. So we have to take a look, we have to make sure we understand all that to understand how we can get the maximum, what's the optimal growing length. And again, it's not all the fiber. The fill fibers, you can still use the other stuff for fill fibers, but we're talking the long fibers that we want to use for structural applications. All right, so here we go. You'll see some nice pictures here in a second. Remember we had the flax stem there. It was about 2 to 3 millimeters, right? All right, and now we're going to pull out the fiber. This little thing here was that little hair that you saw, okay? This is 0.2 millimeters, about. That's that scale right there. So we're going to go down a little bit, and now you can start seeing can start seeing more fibers. So we can start seeing what we call technical fibers. This is at about 100 millimeters. Okay? We're going to go down, and we start seeing kind of elementary fibers. And then here, these are starting to get to the mesofibers right in here, and the little fibrils that are making things up. All this stuff all over it, that's lignin. Okay? Now, we think, because you may not know this, but lignin used to be used to make circuit boards. It's a biopolymer. So is there a way, and you can't take it all away because the cellulose fibers will just kind of fall apart. I mean, you can't, they're just going to be little hairs. Even carbon fiber. When we do carbon, when you see a carbon fiber, it's usually more like 12,000 fibers that you're looking at. They're called toes. And that's what you're seeing here. These are toes of fibers. So why not, and they have to coat carbon fiber to use them, to get them to stick to other things. You have to do the same thing. We already have a natural coating on there. How much of it do we have to take away? How can we use it to connect to other biopolymers so that we can make structural materials out of these? Okay, and then this is just going down another scale, just to kind of see. You can really start seeing, here we start seeing some of the mesofibrils right here coming off. There we go. All right. This is the opportunity. We're up here. Okay. The group, I'm over here this part of the state. My other colleague, Dan, is here, and my other colleague, Jared's down here. And we're working with a group. They actually approached us. We're trying to form something called the Bioindustrial Materials Institute. And it's not any one place right now. It's a bunch of academics that are saying, we need to understand this. There's a lot of challenges to make this successful. Let's get started. And that's why we're here. We want to work with a lot of people. We want to bring in as many people as we possibly can to solve these challenges, because we realize that no one person or no one group can do it. We would like, and I'll talk a little bit about this later, this opportunity is to have branches at different places where we can actually be in the fields, because actually Dan, Jared, and I, Jen Gilbert Jenkins at SUNY Morrisville was nice enough to invite us out to one of the fields that she's growing, one of the farms in Schoharie. And it was only supposed to be a 10-minute meeting, and it turned out to be over an hour. It's just, you learn so much when you go out and you actually see things happening. So we're bringing in researchers all over to try to understand this from the field to the end process. There's competition. Other states see this as a boom too, because this is an industry that we're not displacing from somewhere else. So I know in the capital region, they brought semiconductors in from Texas, and they do a lot of things like that. We're creating a new industry here in the United States. So a lot of states are getting ahead of that. This is a facility down in South Carolina, in Pennsylvania, just in the northern border. The state of Pennsylvania has put a lot of money into hemp process development and doing something similar to what's going on down in Hopewell Junction. So there's a lot of competition. There's going to be a lot of competition in the United States once it becomes a commodity product. And these are just some of the areas. These are all actual hemp-based products that are currently being built. This is already talked about before, but there are opportunities. None of these are really structural. Possibly the boat is starting to get towards structural that we want to talk about. The herd, this is another company. I don't know if you ever heard of Ecovative. They're also around the Albany area. I've been working with Ecovative for about 10 years, developing their product. What they do is they're displacing styrofoam. So, when you get a new computer, you get all that styrofoam all over the place. Well, they have a mushroom-based product that actually replaces that. They also have a product, so you see these tables, they have this kind of this press board on them. And that's just glue and wood chips. Well, the glue is the unsustainable part. So instead of glue, they're using mycelium and they press it. And the advantage of that is this has to be treated so that it meets fire code. Mycelium doesn't combust until about 900 degrees. So it's naturally fire retardant. It's naturally hydrophobic. It resists water. Okay, so it has really great properties, so they can compete in that space. But they'll be the first to tell you, sustainability and green will get you in the door, but it won't make a sale unless you can be competitive. Okay? The reason I put this up here is because even though we're interested in the fiber, they have to import their herd from Europe because that's what they grow the mushroom in. Okay? So you can use multiple parts of this plant no matter how you grow it for different things. So here we are. We started the Bioindustrial Materials Institute. We're complementing our skills. We're bringing in other people that we know in different areas. We're trying to grow this to make sure we get ahead of the problems. And this is kind of the mission of the Biomaterials Institute, is to collaborate, establish a comprehensive understanding of biomaterials. Now, when I say biomaterials, I don't just mean hemp. There's other fibers, there's other materials out there, obviously the biopolymers and things like that we want to work with. But we see our initial, to get started, we see the low-hanging fruit being hemp. It's an important thing that I think we can get ahead of and establish ourselves with. But we're talking all the way from farms, so we're talking the agronomists, the people like Larry Smart at Cornell, or Jen Gilbert Jenkins at SUNY Morrisville, all the way to end users. And we want to make sure, because if we don't understand everybody's problem, we can't come up with solutions. And then this is just the different levels of the BMI. And an important thing here is standards and certification. So if it goes into the field and it's certified as a certain type of fiber, bearing plant, that we want to make sure the end user gets that plant, because quality is going to be important. And that's the problem with any kind of biological. There's a lot of variability. And we need to really cut that down, because with synthetic and carbon and glass kind of fibers, you can really control the quality. And so we need to be careful about that. Okay, so just a little bit on what's going down in Hopewell Junction, because I think that's important for what you want to see. Down there, they're focusing on composites, food, wellness, and fashion. So another part of what we're doing is we're working with people down at FIT, the Fashion Institute down in New York, because that's obviously clothing and fabric. I think that was demonstrated too. But what the BMI what this center also is talking about is the educational component, educating the public, educating the professionals. And why we're interested in it as academics is because we're going to be educating the next generation of professionals that are going to support this market and support this industry. And that's critical. This is processing. This is all processing right here, all the different steps that it takes from the field on to the final product. And one of the things we found is parts of this have to be close to the farms. There's certain distances that, everybody can't afford a decorticator. Okay, everybody can't afford their own processing plant. So what are the optimal distances to put those there? But the reason you'll notice there's a BMI component, and this is actually separate from the academic component, but the developer of this facility feels so strongly about having this component here, this research component here supporting all this, he's actually, for no cost, the only cost is to him, is 10,000 square feet to locate part of the BMI down there so that we can support that. Now, our interest in being down there is so that we can see the processing. We can see what the issues are. We can see how our solutions impact the issues, and that's important. The other part of this we feel very strongly about is almost an innovation center, because if we're going to be helping companies transition from glass and carbon products over to more natural products, we first have to demonstrate that we can do that. And so we're going to need processing equipment. We also need business acceleration support. They want to fill, this is the old IBM facility. This is an old chip fab facility down there at IBM. They want to fill that up with sustainable businesses. So in order to do that, you need people to help with that. And then finally, a cultivation center, and that's an indoor growing facility. In the prototyping center, this is just some of the stuff. Once you get the actual fiber, now you can with what we call a dry tow, you can filament wine, you can braid. Pultrusion is you just kind of pull things through and you impregnate them with polymers. We're talking about, there's a form of material where it's a mixture of the biopolymer and the fiber already, and you can just lay it down in kind of a mat. Okay, I'll hurry. Anyway, these are all just different kind of processing that we want to have down there so that we can do demonstrations. And then here's the indoor growing facility. And again, it's going to be, it's to kind of tune LED lights to optimize the growing of the different plants. So, just in summary, hemp presents a real unique opportunity to create a whole new industry. Unfortunately, I don't even think we know what we don't know yet. And we need to keep hammering on this to try to figure it out. And partnerships are going to be absolutely critical. Learning from whomever we can, bringing in whomever we can. And then finally, many states are investing. And I hope New York continues to. And and we can get out in front of this and support not only the local industry, but more importantly, retain the farmland. And unfortunately, that was the picture that didn't show up. Oh, there was. The picture of New York that was there, the green part of it was all the farmland in New York. And I know right now that one of the things that just came out with one of our senators was saying that they actually want to bring business into the farm country. I would prefer to make the farm country more viable for farmers and to keep it green. That's just my perspective. Oh, sure. I get one, maybe two questions. Yes?
So what is up and running at the hemp park right now?
This is the hemp park right now. Nothing is up and running. It's not so much a dream. It is a big empty space. It's 300,000 square foot of empty space. And right now we're trying to bring in businesses. So we're trying to attract different businesses, different mills to come in, and we have a couple people that are. So we're working actively with the developer. It's only been going on now for 3-4 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what is your plan to have it operate just in general?
Well, it's not my plan. I think they're talking about a year or two.
Okay.
Yeah, they do have a business plan, and they're working with a venture company in New York City to actually pull in the money. And just to let you know, the person who is in charge of all this, his name is Ralph Burrell.
Okay.
And yeah, Ralph is the one that's kind of in charge of that project.
Is there any grants from the state or anything involved? Or is it all
Not yet. We're going after some large centers at the National Science Foundation and things like that. And with the state, we're working with the State Research Council and things like that to try to get things started. But that's all going to be venture money.
So, Ron, is the objective is to kind of bring in a local supply chain?
Yes, it's to create the local supply chain. Yes, absolutely.
I do see another hand, and does the chemistry on monofilament work with hemp fiber and anything that would make it a preferable carbonization material?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Any chemistry process with regards to using hemp fiber for monofilament production? And is there anything that would say we can carbonize these materials and have something more?
Well, I don't know of it, but I have heard of it. There is someone in the group that that is looking at that problem. But
And again, maybe that might be something we can bring back up in the table in the panel discussion. I think that's a big question and a serious question. So
yeah,
I appreciate
very, yeah.
Maybe, yeah, we'll give it some time. So,
Okay.
yeah, Ron, thank you so
Oh,
very much.
you,
Appreciate it.
oh, you're welcome.